It seems I might have been right about the Padres and their whole budget situation, and on top of that, the Texas is making questionable moves that I like, but I'm still questioning. Let's get into it. Welcome back to Touching Bases Podcast. If you're new here, please hit subscribe, like at the very end if I deserved it, and sit back and relax. We're talking Rangers and the Padres today. And it's a little bit late. I know the news has dropped for a while, but I kind of had to digest some of this information. Rangers have signed Kyle Higashioka for a 2-year deal at $13.5 million. Now, there are some small tidbits in there as far as like a $1 million buyout and 2027 option. They split it up a little bit, so it's a $5.75 million for the first year, then $6.75 million for the second year. Now, the Rangers have 39 players officially on the roster, so they are going to be shopping for one more guy. My question is, why Kyle? I understand, and here's my personal thought. If you guys watched the last video, I did a Baseball Chaos episode with Jake from Raise the Trident, and he actually chose Kyle Higashioka for his fantasy free agent rebuild for the Mariners. And I didn't have much to disagree with him. If you look at his stats, he's a pretty solid catcher, especially for being considered a backup. But I don't understand exactly why the Rangers went out to go get a catcher when they could be building in other areas that they're lacking. Now, I understand that Jonah Heim was pretty disappointing last year, even though he came off of an all-star season in 2023. But as of right now, if I look at Fangraphs, and typically Fangraphs is pretty accurate when it comes to this stuff, they still have Jonah Heim as batting 8th in the lineup and as starting, even though he's a switch hitter. He had 491 plate appearances with 13 home runs and 1 stolen base. He slashed a 220, 267, and slugged a 336, which is subpar. It's pretty bad. He did that, like I said, in nearly 500 plate attempts. He played most of the season. He just hit a slump. I mean, I guess you can say this whole Rangers team hit a slump after winning it all in 2023, but it doesn't make any sense to me why you're going to go out and get Kyle Higashioka and he's still going to be on the bench. And even MLB trade rumors mentioned this, said that he's probably going to still be a backup, but I think the guy has proved himself. Coming from New York and being behind quite a few other catchers and then getting traded in the Juan Soto deal this last season to be the backup to Capisano, who was terrible for the Padres, and eventually he pretty much just lost his job towards the end, and Kyle was great in the playoffs. He only had 263 at bats, so literally almost half the amount of bats, but he hit 17 home runs rather than the 13 home runs. They had 2 stolen bases. Double if we want to be dramatic. I don't know if that really... That's stupid. Now, I understand if you look at his stats, you're like, it's pretty much the same. He batted 220, 263, and slugged 476. Slugged significantly better than Jonah Heim. But he hit 17 home runs in half the amount of plate appearances. What could he do with 491 plate appearances as a starting catcher? On top of that, just last season, he was able to post 105 WRC plus. His OFF, which is batting and base running combined, was a .3, and his defense was a field and positioning adjustment combined was a 6.0, which is really good for catchers these days. His overall year last year, he posted a 1.6 WAR. That's great for a lot of the catchers that are out there, especially for being so cheap. Now, don't get me wrong, he doesn't walk a lot. He has about a 5% walk rate, and he has a 28% strikeout rate. So maybe that's what people steer away from, but if you compare it to Jonah Heim, he's still better. Jonah Heim's batting and base running combined was negative 19.5. His WAR was a negative 0.1. He didn't even, he lost games for the Rangers with his performance. And his fielding and positional adjustment combined was 1.9 versus Higashioka's 6.0. Not only defensively, but offensively, a significant difference in their abilities, and Kyle Higashioka has only been getting better with a trajectory that's been going up, while Jonah's kind of had this little slump. It's almost like a Garver deal, like a Mitch Garver, where he had a great season in 2023 where something was clicking, and then this last season, they both just were not that good. Jonah Heim was better than Mitch Garver, and he's over in Seattle, but you get my point. What's questionable to me is why not have Kyle Higashioka be your starter and have Jonah Heim fill in until he can prove himself again. This is a 2-year deal with Higashioka, so why not? He's been on this role of getting better each and every season. Last season he did extremely well for only playing half of the season and as a backup, and he proved, I think at this point, that he can be a starter, especially for a Rangers team like this that's pretty stacked with a lot of veterans, and then even some of the rookies like Wyatt Langford, who I think will probably break out this season, just needed that time to adjust. And with Josh Young coming back from his injury, hopefully that offense will be a little bit better and third base will be taken care of. Now, I won't leave out Evan Carter, although he did have a pretty bad season. He only batted a 188 with an OBP of 273 and slugging 361. Basically, him and Jonah Heim were a little bit on par as far as their hitting ability. Evan Carter a little bit less, so a bit of a letdown, but I think like Wyatt Langford, he's probably going to bounce back in 2025. I think there's an adjustment period, and I think that whole team had a little bit of the post-pennant blues where they weren't able to come back and just kind of restart fresh in the new season. I don't know. So what are the Rangers going to do as far as that 40-man spot? Well, you're looking at the starting lineup over here. You have Marcus Semien, Kyle Seager, Wyatt Langford, Adolis Garcia, Nathaniel Lowe, Josh Young, Josh Smith, Jonah Heim, and Evan Carter. At this point, Josh Smith has kind of proved that his bat is significant and he can hit at Globe Life Field. Maybe they are going to look for another outfielder, maybe somebody that they can throw out there besides Ezekiel Duran just to platoon with Evan Carter, or maybe splash big with like Tyler O'Neill or something big there. They have one more spot on their 40-man roster. I don't see why they don't go after it. Texas Rangers, I would say, is a pretty decent sized market with the payroll they currently have, and I don't see why they wouldn't spend more, especially with maybe someone who has a lot of power that can play in the outfield and has speed. Tyler O'Neill to me would probably be a great option. Granted, there are plenty of other teams that need an outfielder and need that power. So what's going to happen? I'm not going to tell you what's going to happen, but if I were the Rangers, I would go after Tyler O'Neill just because Evan Carter is still a big question mark. I think Kyle Higashioka will, after the first month, prove that he deserves a starting spot and he might move into that position. You also have Tavares that's there, who can also play in the outfield, but again, these are more, I would say, speedster type guys. They're not power hitters. They're not anybody that's going to be an explosive bat in your lineup. And I feel like the Rangers have kind of prided themselves on these very high-end star players to be on the roster. They are a powerhouse of the AL West, besides the Astros. Just unfortunately last year it didn't work out for them. Now, a lot of that can probably be contributed to pitching. You know, they had a lot of injuries. Jacob deGrom was out. You know, Max Scherzer was out and on barely. And now next year they're going to have Jacob deGrom back. Hopefully he stays healthy. John Gray will be around. You have Cody Bradford, who's going to be back. He was off and on last season as well. And then you have Kumar Rocker, who finally got called up for his shot, and he seemed to perform decently. I mean, a 3.86 ERA is not bad, but they didn't really let him pitch too many innings. Out of 3 games started, he only pitched 11.2 innings. So maybe another pitcher, but I would say go after your offense for your outfield and try to add there, at least for your 40-man, and roll with the pitching that you have. I don't think you have a bad setup if you're Texas. As for the Padres, what are we doing? Honestly, I'm going to go back to this whole thing where I've been saying in my past videos, I think they got in trouble with Peter Seidler's kind of last hurrah. He was an owner that I think everybody should want. He owned the Padres from 2012 to this last year, where he passed away, unfortunately. He was a 2-time cancer survivor, and he put a lot of effort into this team to make it World Series contenders, make it a final push. That's why he went after Soto. That's why he made all these big trades, and he pushed to actually give the city something to cheer for. And it made it really fun as a Padres fan and living near San Diego and going all to those games at Petco Park, and just the way they changed everything up over the past few years. It's been really fun, honestly. But they did take out a lot of loans when it comes to their roster. They took out a lot of loans because it's money they didn't have, and unfortunately it didn't exactly pay off. And from what I've read, there hasn't been enough revenue to pay off those loans that were supposed to be paid off this last season. So even though they were contenders going against the juggernaut Dodgers and they just weren't quite able to get past them, it was fun, but I think this is where it kind of ends. Unfortunately, we're locked in with Tatis, we're locked in with Machado. We have quite a few players that are really good, but Ha-Seong Kim, he's definitely gone. I don't think he's coming back. Higashioka, I would have loved to see him stay, because what we have right now as a Padres fan is nothing. Luis Campusano is a weird standing batting stance dude that doesn't hit. He just doesn't do the job. And defensively, he's okay, but I wouldn't not be excited to have him behind the plate by any means. So what are we going to do about catcher? Because Higashioka, I think, was your best option as far as a catching role that would be affordable. But I don't know if anything is affordable for the Padres this year. You might just be rolling with what you got going into 2025 and not really making any big deals, which leads me to also another video that I will make, but the whole Roki Sasaki thing and a lot of these international purchases that are going to be cheap, I don't even think that they have a role in it. As of right now, it's the estate of Peter Seidler that is in charge of this team and calling shots. And I think at this point, those are people and family members and a group that isn't as passionate as Peter was. And so they're looking to pay off the debts rather than to build this team. And that's just an unfortunate reality I think that we are living in. I'm not trying to be cynical or anything like that, and I don't want to take Padre fans and shoot them down, but I think this is just, it was a good effort, and I really do respect that whole family, and I respect Peter, and you know, may he rest in peace and everything. I feel wholeheartedly that this is some of the best ownership that you can get, because he did everything to give his city a winning team and an honest effort to do so. But I think at this point we might be looking at just a very quiet off season for the Padres. That's all I have for you guys. If you guys like the video, give it a like. If you're a Padres fan, share with your friends. If you're a Rangers fan, share with your friends on X, Twitter. Even if you just hit share and you don't share it anywhere, I think it helps. But comment below your guys' thought. Let's have a discussion. I will reply to your comments because this is a small channel, and I'll see you guys later.